right, guys, when it comes to this next round of stimulus negotiations and what's going on in politics today, we've already heard Nancy Pelosi has postponed the vote for the infrastructure stimulus bill until this upcoming. However, they're also supposed to vote on the federal budget at the same time. We're going to get some insight into why they had to postpone it from Congresswoman Jayapal, who's going to give us some details on why Nancy did what she did in regards to postponing and when they're actually going to vote and actually how things are looking in Congress. We're going to talk about all that in details. Also, we're going to discuss how this infrastructure bill and the federal budget is going to impact the cost of living adjustment, the Medicare adjustment and changes that are supposed to take place, as well as stimulus money to assist you who are still in need. We're going to talk about all that in details. So if you have not subscribed there to Love Crossing Borders and Andrea Wallace TV, go ahead and subscribe. But as for now, looks like Congress is in shambles. We've got the Democrats versus the Democrats when it comes to getting the $3.5 trillion stimulus bill passed. At the same time, we've got the Republicans versus Republicans when it comes to how to handle President Trump and Mitch McConnell's battle. So while they're focusing on all that, time is winding down. Think about it. The 30th is this Thursday. And if the date passes, that means that October 1st, the government will automatically shut down. And we know how that was a couple years ago when President Trump shut the government down so he can get that $9 billion to build the wall. How many government workers had to go to banks and get bank loans and payday loans and ended up losing a lot of money, and a lot of them ended up having bad credit because the president shut the government down a few years back. 2019. We don't want that to happen again.
Senate Republicans, meanwhile, have blocked a bill to prevent a US government shutdown. Funding for the federal government is set to expire on Thursday. The stopgap measure would have suspended the debt ceiling and extended funding until December. It needed 10 Republican senators and all 50 Democrats to support it for it to be approved. However, the vote failed, 48 voting for, 50 voting against.
Yes, it's a busy week on Capitol Hill, but political infighting could derail several critical votes. Senate Republicans blocked a funding bill Monday evening, which is needed to prevent a government shutdown and stop the United States from defaulting on its debt payments. House and Senate Democrats are also hoping to pass two major infrastructure bills in the coming days. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian's following it all on Capitol.
Tonight, a high-stakes showdown.
Voting no says, let's risk it.
Over a potential shutdown.
We will not provide Republican votes for raising the debt limit.
Congress at odds over how to avoid an historic default on the nation's debt and keep the government open before funding expires Friday. Without a resolution, agency services could be halted and roughly 800,000 federal workers would be furloughed with suspended pay. At the White House, President Biden exuded confidence as the main pillars of his legislative agenda hang in the balance.
More an optimist.
House Democrats huddled behind closed doors tonight ahead of a possible vote this week on the president's $3.5 trillion social spending package. It includes an estimated $450 billion for universal pre-K and to lower the cost of childcare, $327 billion for affordable housing, and $225 billion for paid family and medical leave. Some progressives have threatened to vote against another Biden priority, the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, without a deal on the larger plan.
At the same time, President Biden is trying to make sure that money is being sent out to FEMA so they can take care of those that are in need due to the hurricanes. So there's a lot that needs to take place over the next 4 days. First thing we want to talk about is, why did Nancy Pelosi even have to postpone? Because we know that she didn't have enough votes. And why is that? Congressman Jayapal on State of the Nation, she was able to give more details on what's taking place behind the scenes in Congress that many of us don't know about.
Congressman, always good to see you. Thank you so much. So let's just talk about where we are right now. Yeah. Speaker Pelosi plans to bring, or had said she was going to bring, the bipartisan infrastructure plan to the floor of the House tomorrow. No, that you and dozens of progressives will vote against that bill, likely tanking it, if the $3.5 trillion spending bill does not come up first. Is it your understanding that the infrastructure bill is coming up for a vote tomorrow, and you and your fellow progressives will defeat it tomorrow? Is that what you expect will happen tomorrow?
I know we're working very hard to get agreement on the reconciliation package, and that, of course, has to be agreement across the Senate and the House, because we are not going to leave anyone behind. You know, we're not going to leave behind women who desperately need childcare. We're not going to leave behind taking on climate change and taking urgent action. We're not going to leave behind public housing. We're not going to leave behind immigrants who are essential workers and need to be acknowledged as such. And fundamentally, we're not going to leave behind healthcare in the midst of a health crisis. So that's all the stuff that's in the Build Back Better Act, what we're calling the reconciliation bill. And our point is just we're ready to vote for both. We are excited to vote for both, and we will vote for both, but we need to actually get the reconciliation bill done. That was what we said 3.5 months ago, Jake. Yeah. And so, you know, our belief is that we'll get there. We're very close, but we have to get to that reconciliation bill first.
A lot of individuals took for granted when her and other congressmen said that they will not vote for the bipartisanship American Rescue Plan unless the Senate votes for the American Family Plan that we've all been waiting for, that stimulus plan. If those plans aren't voted on at the same time, over 60 congressmen, including Congressman Jayapal, have already said that they are not going to vote for or at least approve of the American Rescue Plan, which is the infrastructure plan. So right now it's at a stalemate. It's not just Democrats versus Democrats, but it's also the Senate versus the House of Representatives when it comes to both proposals.
The reconciliation bill does have to start in the House because it's a budget reconciliation bill, but everything should be agreed upon. What we don't want to
an agreement's good. An agreement is good.
But an agreement of exactly what's in there. The language needs to be worked out because...
And a commitment that everybody's going to vote for.
And everyone's going to vote for it. And if Republicans offer, you know, amendments in a vote-a-rama, that we're not going to have Democratic senators suddenly vote with Republicans. So the idea here is, unlike many other bills, many other times that we do this, where the House passes a bill, it's not necessarily something that the Senate can do. The Senate then goes and passes their bill, and then we conference or we have back and forth. This is a pre-conferenced bill, which means everybody in the Senate and everybody in the House has to agree on every piece of it.
But either way, you're looking for an agreement on the reconciliation, not necessarily a vote first when it comes to infrastructure.
Well, it's just the logistics of it, right? Yeah. Everything has to be done. There has to be kind of an ironclad.
Are you guys close to that at all, an agreement?
Well, I think we're finally talking, which is important because that hasn't been happening for the last couple of months.
Pelosi says it's going to happen this week. Is that realistic?
I mean, we want to have it happen as soon as possible. So everybody, I know I worked every single minute of every single day for the last several weeks, you know, for the last several days, trying to talk to people and get this done. That's our hope, is to try to get it done. But we need the Senate to engage with us if that's going to happen.
As we've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, senators such as Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema have already said that they are not voting for a $3.5 trillion stimulus plan. So they've already come to the conclusion that part of the infrastructure bill will not be approved. So they've got to go through a whole new batch of negotiations to even get that part approved. Well, if it's not approved, once again, you have those in the House, such as Congresswoman Jayapal and the other 59 congressmen have already said that they are not voting for the one that's already passed the Senate. So this is the dilemma that we have right now. We are looking at two infrastructure bills that need to be passed immediately. There's a lot of people that need more money for rent relief. There are a lot of individuals that on Medicare, SSI, SSDI, Retire Railroad, representative payees, those that are survivors that could use the benefits of hearing, vision, as well as dental. Bernie Sanders has already said that he wants to give each person a $1,000 voucher to pay for these medical needs. All that is in the infrastructure bills. So if these things are shortened, like Joe Manchin wants to do, guess what he's doing? He's taking away from your benefits of what you will be able to receive from the $3.5 trillion if they take it all the way down to $2 trillion. That's a large amount of money that's being taken away from you.
Well, let's listen to what West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said on the show 2 weeks ago about the threat by progressives to tank the bipartisan infrastructure.
If they can go home and tell people that, hey, I don't care about the roads and bridges, you don't need it. I don't care about internet service, you don't need that. I don't care about fixing water and sewer lines. If they play politics with the needs of America, I can tell you, America will recoil.
What do you say to that?
I mean, look, we need to bring down the temperature, but I would just say, I could say the same thing about anyone who votes against the reconciliation bill. If you want to go back and tell people that you don't want childcare, or you don't want housing, or you don't want to take on climate change, or you don't want to provide health care to people, I mean, that's not good either. This is the president's Democratic agenda. We will deliver on both of them, Jake. I am absolutely confident of that. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take the Joe Manchin and others sitting down to actually negotiate. And I am ready, willing, and able to talk to anyone about anything at any time to get that done.
Hopefully things turn around. They get this done as soon as possible. We're going to keep you guys posted every day. Like I said, we're going to be at several locations over the next few weeks. So guys, thank you for your patience in regards to that, especially those that are on SSI, SSDI, and Retire Railroad, Representative Payee, those that are on disability, and you survivors. Realize that we want to make sure that you always get updated information on things that will help you regarding your benefits. In a couple of weeks, they're going to be announcing the cost of living increase, so you get a chance to find that out. But don't get too overexcited, because, like I mentioned before, inflation is going up just as fast, and without these infrastructure stimulus bills, it's going to impact it even more.
Yeah, Jim, there's a lot packed in this week, and this is one of those weeks where everything lawmakers are deciding on could affect you and your family and your pocketbook. They are dealing with funding the government, which keeps it going, and raising the debt ceiling to avoid a financial crisis, voting on infrastructure improvements, and a plan that could affect how much you pay for prescriptions and This week in Washington, trillions of dollars at stake, the government itself, and big goals for Democrats that could affect families back home.
To get half of this done and leave mothers who are looking for affordable child care, Americans who are looking for lower cost prescription drugs, to leave people like that on the wayside, families that need that child tax credit, to leave those folks on the wayside is unacceptable to me.
Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey pushing Democrats to use the moment they have controlling the White House and both chambers of Congress, but barely.
What's at play here?
So what's at play here is really Joe Biden's entire domestic agenda.
And there is no calamity that's going to happen.
Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey and other Republicans pushing Democrats to handle the debt ceiling.
They are in the midst of an absolutely unprecedented, very damaging spending spree on a scale that we have never seen. And they want us to come along and authorize the borrowing to help pay